Hi, I'm Debbie Thompson, and this is A Stone in My Shoe, the podcast where we explore how midlife can become the most true, purposeful, and fulfilling chapter yet when we choose to follow our inner wisdom. Each week, I speak with women who followed a quiet nudge and chose curiosity over convention and created a life that feels more aligned. And today I'm so excited to introduce Doro Fischer from Valencia in Spain. She's a senior communications strategist and international coach who has spent over 2 decades helping global organizations like the United Nations communicate clearly and meaningfully about things that matter. She is also a seasoned moderator and facilitator and an expert in international funding. And if that's not enough, she speaks and works in 4 languages. So welcome, Doro.
Nice to meet you again, Debbie.
You too, and thank you for taking your time from your busy schedule and, you know, communicating between Australia and Spain. It's a wonderful ability to be able to speak to anybody all over the world.
Exactly, I love that. And you didn't say, actually, I'm German by origin. Maybe this is like an additional thing that also explains why I'm multilingual. I've been living in Spain for 18 years now.
Wow, yes, that's a long time, isn't it? Wonderful. So, Doro, where do you find yourself now? What's happening for you?
Well, this is a big question. Obviously, life is always a journey and it's dynamic, you know. We never jump into the same river twice, so you see that there's always things in motion. I think last year was really a year of transformation for me, I would say, because on the one hand, as you've rightly said, I've been working in international communications for more than 20 years.
Hmm.
I'm running my own international agency. I work with the UN, the European Union, and other international organizations. And that's something I continue doing. But at the beginning of last year, I was actually starting a deep crisis because of
Ah,
the
the stone
geopolitical.
in your
Yes,
shoe.
exactly. And that's why I'm saying it was
Ah,
really a year of transformation because they stopped some of my projects because of the geopolitical situation in the world. I'm not going to enter any
yeah.
political discussions
Okay.
here because that's not the point now. But
Yeah.
basically, the world order is changing at the moment. The way things are done, you know, like we're returning a little bit to the strongest gains and like power struggles that we
Yeah.
thought we'd left behind. Even
Yeah.
I've grown up in the generation where we always believed in peace. We even thought that a war in Europe would never be possible again. And then the war in Ukraine
Mm.
came back a few
Yeah.
years ago, still ongoing, and that actually had a side impact on my projects. I don't work directly with Ukraine, for example, but I have
Mm.
other international
Mm.
projects
Mm.
that have seen, the impact. And some of my clients have gone into paralysis, I would even say, or
Mhm.
like they, like a
Mm.
thinking phase because they no longer know how to communicate and what would be their strategic approach in
Mm.
that sense. So that was the beginning of last year, and I really questioned whether I should continue doing what I've been doing in these past 20 years, which I deeply believe in because most of the projects I work on are about sustainable development or human
Mm.
rights. So they're really purposeful in their essence. But I've seen actually that the way they're being done, I don't really connect so much any longer. And I even seen a lot of toxic
So
environments
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and mental health issues in the
Mm.
organizations.
Mm.
So, sorry for this
So
long introduction,
yeah,
but it's
no, no,
important
that's
to know to
it's
understand.
important to know that. So you are a mum of 4 girls,
Yes, three girls and a bonus child.
three
Yes.
girls and a boy. So we all like a bonus child. And
Yeah.
so this is obviously quite a big stone in your shoe, and we're going to unpack that later on. Was this the first stone in your shoe? Because you're a mum, a working mum with your own agency, working the UN, like a lot of responsibility. Um, is this the first one, or was there something else, a previous stone in your shoe that you're like,
Yeah.
I need to, I'm not,
Yeah.
perhaps not aligned with what I should be doing, and I should be doing something else?
Yeah, good one. Yeah, and we're gonna unpack what I'm doing now in
Yeah.
a little bit later. Yeah, the first stone in my shoe was definitely when I was a younger mom, I would say. That was around the year 2013, 2014.
Yep.
Two of my daughters had been born by then, and I was really struggling with the 9 to 5 jobs. I was working in an international project. At the time, I was the communications manager. I had a stable income, and even from the outside, it looked like, yeah, you're doing a good career. Like people were like even proud of me and saying, wow, this is really interesting what you're doing, international cooperation. Also in the situation, we have to remember that it was just around the financial crisis in Europe and in Spain, and Spain was really hardly hit hard. So a lot of people were unemployed and were looking for stable jobs, and I had the stable situation, but I was really suffering with this, like being in the rat race, being in this 9 to 5 job, and then like being a mom at the same time. I felt I was not really serving my kids well. At the same time, I was really struggling with a strict time frame, and I realized I really wanted to get out of that framework because I believe so much more in results-based work. Like not counting the hours, even being more efficient is better. Like when you're in an environment where the people look at 9 to 5, they look bad at you when you go for coffee, or they ask why your kid's ill and you have to go to the doctor now. But they don't actually see sometimes that you work over the weekends or the evenings, and that you're maybe even just more efficient. You get your job done in an hour instead of other people that need 3, you see? So I didn't really like that setup at all.
So what did it look like for you? Was it burnout? Was it, I mean, I guess what I'm looking for is what kind of indication was your intuition giving that this was not the right path for you, that perhaps you weren't aligned, is question number one. And question number two, did you listen to those nudges?
Interesting question. On the one hand, I also felt boredom. It's interesting because I was also in a job that was a little bit repetitive with respect to the content. So, for example, I had to do this one communication campaign every year, and it was the same topic every year. So I had to find new ways of doing that. And at the same time, I did try a few things. Like I was always the one that was really like proactive and creative. And I really had 2 or 3 like key situations where I thought, I'm not going to accept that any longer. That really brought me to my boundaries. Like, for example, one male colleague got a promotion, and he was the one who never did anything. I even took over a lot of his tasks. So I went to my boss and said, why the hell did he get this promotion? And you know that I'm so active here and I'm really moving things forward. And she said to me, yeah, because you don't need it. We know that you're motivated all the time. We wanted to motivate the
Ah,
colleague.
isn't that shocking? Isn't
That
that
was
shocking?
so off-putting. I thought, yeah, really, I'm the busy bee all the time. I get things done, and then you think like you motivate the male colleague like this, and then there was another situation because we had problems financing some of the projects we did. We had to ask our colleagues in Finland. It was like some internal bureaucratic stuff, but basically in the annual report, the project was like then mentioned as one of the Finnish projects, and it was mine. I had done all the work, and I just felt I didn't get any recognition for whatever I was doing. So that was actually, I think that these 2 situations were the kick out point where I just said, I'm not going to take this any longer. I know I can do more. And then, and at the same time, I wanted to do so much more out of that, like little box, because I wanted to work more worldwide. I was working in Europe at the time, and I thought, wow, I'd really love to work more in Africa, Latin America, and other regions of the world. That was another motivation. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So it was kind of like the stone was becoming sharper and sharper and being, additional stones added in there with those 2 events that happened, right? And
Exactly.
then you're starting to, you're being more aligned with working internationally, working more with Africa. But at the same time, you are in a stable job in Europe and particularly Spain, that was hit quite hard. So giving up a stable job and jumping off a cliff or out of the airplane, whatever you want. How did you navigate those waters? Because those are unknown and for many people very scary. So talk me through that.
Yeah, actually, it's not something that happened from one day to the other. And I think that's also something I give as an advice to people that I work with, like my coaches and stuff. I realized, okay, this is no longer a fit. I have to prepare my way out somehow.
Yeah.
So, for example, I've already been doing some voluntary work in addition to my job where I was creating like a new community or building up new contacts. And at the same time, I made a list of 10 organizations that I thought could be interesting for me, and to offer my expertise. I also did like a whole work around, okay, what can I offer to the world? What are my strengths and weaknesses? Because you know when you like become a freelancer, you really it's not like you don't really know. Will people hire me? Will they really see my expertise, or is it something that I feel I am good at? So that was the whole process I prepared. It took me a few weeks. And then I was really lucky because I went to a conference and I got to know this Italian foundation. And I immediately, sometimes you connect with people, you just feel a good vibe. And after that conference, I looked at their website and it said on their website, look, we're always looking for experts to collaborate for new collaborations. And I thought, yeah, really, I'm going to write them an email and just offer myself. And they immediately wrote back, yeah, actually, we have a project now. We're looking for somebody with your profile. And at the beginning, I thought I could start doing this next to my job, like building it up slowly. But actually, after a month or so, I realized there was a conflict of interest for the type of project that I was involved in. So I went to Rome. I went to see now, look, I loved working with you. I love the project you have. But I have a problem. There's this conflict of interest. So either you give me 7 days per month for the next year and I work for you and I quit my job, or this is the end. I was actually quite courageous when I think about it.
Wow, very,
I
very
traveled to Rome
courageous.
and I said that
Yeah,
to them because I had nothing to lose. I still had
yeah.
my job, I hadn't quit my job, but I just felt this is the right direction. And it was actually the day when you ask me now with my experience, the daily rate was really super low. So it was actually 7 days meant quite a low salary per month still, but I knew it was enough to pay my rent and just like whatever is basic food and stuff. I wouldn't get very far with it, but for me, it was like now looking back, this was my startup grant. I know in some countries you do have startup grants, but in Spain, there wasn't any help for like women entrepreneurs at the time that I could use. So in the end, I found this startup project and
In
they hired
Rome.
me for
Fabulous. Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and they hired me for a year and we even continued working together after that. But the moment I was on the market, I quit my job, I was on the market, my former employer even gave me a project straight away. Look, we have this newsletter. Could you continue doing that? So, and then I won a tender, and the once I was in the market, and I actually one of the good things is also I always keep insisting on that. I'm actually a very good community builder and a good networker, and I've been using LinkedIn for a long time, and I really look for quality contacts. It's not about being the influencer with 100,000 followers or so. No, it's really who are the quality people that you may want in your content in your network. Because once I was out there and I started posting on it on LinkedIn, even people started contacting me there, and I
Oh,
got new
that's
projects.
amazing. So
So I feel never
actually,
without.
it was
Yeah.
quite a soft landing for you then, and that was. I mean, it sounds like you're very logical. When you get a sense that something's misaligned, it's like, okay, so what do I need to do? What steps do I need to put in place? You have your North Star, you follow it, and you take the aligned action. You actually take the action and make it happen. And um, so when you went across your own agency, actually, with all the networking you had done and with the people in Rome and your old company, you had a number of things to keep you safe. Because I think safety is often, or fear is a big thing that holds many people back. Fear of failure, fear of so many things. Um, do you think it was your logical way you approached it, or do you think it was your clarity of where you were going that made this? Because it sounds perfect and
Yeah,
so
it was.
easy.
It sounds easy now, but it wasn't because obviously I was in conflict. I was also, I mean, I have a family, and actually
Yeah.
my partner at the time, I got divorced actually 1 year later to that first husband. But he was actually an architect and an artist. He wasn't earning very much, a lot of money. So I was actually more of the breadwinner of the family, and that also, that wasn't easy. What I did actually, another thing for the safety question is, I had saved 10,000 euro. And I always told myself, okay, when you start being a freelancer, I mean, you have to be aware that sometimes clients don't pay on time. You may have to use some of your savings, to bridge whatever costs. And I knew I had that. And this is again, this is part of the preparation. I didn't jump off the cliff from one day to the other. No, I prepared it for a year, and then it felt safe. And then maybe the other thing that helps me actually is always the question, what makes me unique? Is interesting because when I start having imposter syndrome or even doubting, okay, will people hire me? Am I good enough or whatsoever? I start with, okay, Dora, what makes you unique, or what are the skills that you could maybe use for whatever job? Because I also told myself, I'm trying this for a year. I'm trying this for a year. If it doesn't work, I'm going to look for another job. But I knew also that finding an international job in Valencia wouldn't be easy because it's not a real international hub like Brussels, Paris, or whatever. And one of the answers I can always tell myself is, for example, I speak 4 languages, Dora. Okay, don't forget that. If it doesn't work in Spain, whatever, in Spanish, you may find another one in German or whatsoever. And that's even, this is just a mental self-talk. Huh? But I think we all have this. What makes us different maybe from others? We should remind us of our strengths, and we all have strengths, and we're all unique in one way or the other. And that was really a good practice that helped me out of some of the dark moments that I also experienced. We all have that as
Yeah.
well. We have bad days or like question marks. Is it going to continue? But I have to say I was also very lucky because for a long time I didn't even have my own website. This is another funny thing. I work in communications, and for the first 5 years, I didn't have my own website because I didn't need one. Because the projects generated from recommendations, snowball effect, network. So at a certain point, I thought, I need a window or something, like I need a showplace when people ask me, what kind of projects have you done? So I created the website in the end. But it wasn't because of the website that I got new projects. It's really the community, the recommendations, and then the good projects obviously then also brings another one, and so forth. Yeah. Until last year when the second stone
Well, I'm just before
showed
I
up.
go on to the second stone, I just wanted to ask.
Mm.
So this was Doro at how many years ago was this where you transitioned from
Two,
your job into,
yeah.
sorry,
2014.
2014. So
Yeah,
that was, yeah, 11 years
5
ago.
years.
And what did you learn in that process? What were the major learnings about yourself, about the world, just about your intuition, just anything that you would like to share with the people listening?
One of the sentences that always comes up again is like, trust the universe.
Hmm.
I have the feeling that the universe really had something lined up for me that is much bigger than the projects I worked on before. When I look at them now, when I look at my previous job, it feels so small. And I think I can have so much more impact working like on as my own boss and working on my own projects. And yeah, and also the diversity that actually the world is open. This is another thing I love, even being an entrepreneur, because it doesn't, define or you restrict you to one certain task or type of projects. For example, I also did a children's book. In between of all of that, I published a children's book because suddenly I had this idea and I met this illustrator and we published a book. And so I love actually that as an entrepreneur, whatever comes up as an idea, you can follow those if you feel that this is something, that there is an attraction there, a resonance. And for me, that's actually very, very powerful because it feels like a super engine from inside.
Wow. Okay. So for some people who I guess trusting the universe, and I know you've done quite a lot of work around this, but for
Mm,
somebody new listening,
mm.
how do you go about trusting the universe? Is that the same as trusting your intuition, or trusting that your intuition is taking you in the right direction and that opportunities and the right path will emerge?
Mm. Interesting. Yeah. First of all, it's true. I think I'm really working a lot with my intuition, and it has become better over the
Mhm.
years because I've started to listen much more to
Yeah.
it, and everything that is connected with it, gut feeling, feeling it in your heart. Actually in German, you say gut feel, Bauchgefühl, gut feeling. It's really you notice when you want to take a decision, and maybe the rational decision would be one way, but your gut just says, I'm not so sure. And then sometimes the other one, which feels crazy or so much more courageous, just feels like the right one.
So
And
it's so knowing and trusting that the universe has got your back. Did it feel it was a feeling in your body, in your gut, in your chest, in your heart that it was right. And then when that happened, you just went, okay, this is the right thing, and just took the next step in that direction. Is
yeah,
that how it
yeah.
worked for you?
Yeah, it works on, and even on a private basis, because when I got divorced, that was a very difficult decision,
Mm.
because I had two small daughters. I had, yeah, I knew, okay, in the worst case, I had to bring them up myself, and I couldn't really count on any financial support from my ex. But in the end, it worked out fine. But when you get
Mm.
separated, and the other earns less than you, you cannot count on that support. If it happens, great. But I have so many examples of women around me that actually never got any support from their ex-partners. So I knew, if I go that step, or if I take that step, that direction, that could mean that I'm on my own now. At the same time, I met somebody else, and it was really funny, that story, because I met that somebody else in my girls' school. This is like a bit of a movie story. It was my daughter's best friend's father, who was also
It's a
like,
bit like Love Actually. Do you remember when
yeah.
Liam Neeson meets Claudia Schiffer at the local school?
Yeah, exactly, something like this.
Yeah.
So it was really funny, because if I wasn't looking for a new partner, but it just happened because we were on the playground, and our daughters got on so well with each other. So I suddenly fell in love very quickly, and I also got pregnant very quickly, which wasn't planned at the time. And suddenly I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna have like a patchwork family. Am I gonna say yes to that? And in the end, like all of our families, they were looking at, what? You just started a new relationship. Now you're pregnant from that man. You don't know this guy, and are you serious? And it's so funny, because we both knew. We asked ourselves the question: do we want to go this way together? Do you want to have this child? And we were so certain. There was no doubt whatsoever. And I can tell you now, more than 10 years later, this was the right decision, because I'm still with that man, and we're having a lovely patchwork family. But obviously, looked like, if people looked at us from the outside, they just thought we were crazy.
But isn't that the thing about intuition and knowing? Because, yeah, logically, people can look in and go, stay safe. Because, we crave, so many
Yeah.
people, well, we're kind of wired for safety. And then when you go against it, it scares people. And, um, but the thing is, I guess with you, you'd had these 10 years, you'd had this moment where uh, you left your job, you set up your own agency, and you were trusting your intuition, and you felt that the universe had your back. So when the feeling is right, you're like, okay, I'm just going to go with this, which is beautiful.
And also, do you know what? I don't overthink when I take decisions. When I feel this is the right one, I don't overthink, and that's actually a good thing to do, because if I did that, probably I wouldn't go forward with certain steps. So I
And
think that's another advice. Just follow the
yeah,
intuition without overthinking. If it
yeah,
feels right, just go for it.
yeah,
And you will
and
never
I
have safety, yeah? I
Yeah,
don't
you'll
have
never
security
know
now.
everything, will you? You can't predict everything that could happen in the future. And I know, because that's something I used to suffer from, only because, my logical mind was give me all the answers. Give me all the answers, give me every possible scenario. And how can you predict that? And then you talk yourself out of things. So it's, I guess for somebody listening, is that gut feeling and that intuition, and learning to really
Mm,
listen to it and trust it,
mm.
is so powerful, because you don't waste days, hours, whatever, second guessing yourself, redoing the decision made, moving on, feels good, moving on.
Exactly. But at the same time, one funny thing is also, I have this side, but I also have the controller, this
Yeah,
which
I
is
hear
quite
you.
strong.
Mm.
Exactly. And actually, the controller comes out when I do financial management. And actually, it's not bad to have this part of, for example, I have a very good Excel. I see in advance, I know exactly how much I will earn, more or less, or like how many invoices I will send which month. So I also see in advance when there will be a gap, or when, like, income will go down, because I don't know, maybe projects, I have less projects in June. So then it's like, okay, I have to switch on the motor to, or the engine to generate new projects for that period. Since I see it in advance, so this is really, I do a lot of strategic planning, and I see like a lot of financial controlling. I've never been in the situation to be without projects, without money. And I see it in comparison with my husband, who is from Latin America, who doesn't have this side. I think it's my German, German origin or something like this.
So yes.
But you know what? It's a good combination. I'm realizing that more and more now, that on the one hand, trusting your intuition, having this like ability to tap into that wisdom, but at the same time, controlling certain parts that you can control. I mean, this is part of, like
Yeah. Yeah.
what I mean, that doesn't
Yeah.
depend on the universe if I do my Excel or not. I can do that myself. And then I see certain things coming and I react on time before it actually stresses me out in a survival mode. And
And
that
I
has
think that's
happened
it.
several times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's a really important point, actually, is the fact that your intuition, because I was struggling with this, and sorry for this digressing, and trying to, I have a controller, very, very strong controller, and my intuition. And I've made truce. The two of them have had a chat and we've made a truce. But my controller wanted to know everything. So if something new came up, so my intuition would go, something would come up and I'd go, oh, that's interesting. And then rather than taking the next step, I wanted to know all the steps to the end. And
Ah,
my controller would not feel safe until all the steps were revealed. Of course they can't be. So what it does, it shuts it down. No, that's too risky. And now it's gone, okay, intuition knows the direction, but it doesn't know every step. The controller will come in and take the action in the right direction. So they're working together quite nicely now. Intuition sets the direction, controller does the work.
exactly. And often, the journey is the destination for me.
Yeah.
Even I do a lot of like trainings on this with my coaches because I realized the goal setting is really relative. Some people have difficulties in knowing what is their overall purpose or what's their super big goal.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not necessary. Just start walking. Know more or less the direction that you're going to, what's actually giving you energy, what's attracting you,
Yeah.
make that grow in your life, and then something will unfold. And actually, I love even when the universe surprises me. And if
Yeah.
you control everything 100%, the universe will never surprise you. So give this opportunity, even, and what I also feel more and more is like attract the things that you want to grow in your life. And this like attraction and resonance, frequency work, I believe more in because this is when the magic happens. And this is when you're first of all aligned with yourself, like your heart and like and your purpose. You operate from the heart, and that
And
makes actually
and
that
I
makes things
think
enter your
things
life.
happen very quickly, don't they? You meet the right thing or your right situation, or you go to somewhere and somebody's there and says something, and the synchronicities. I mean, I'm sure everybody listening has had synchronicities, but as you align yourself more and more, as your energy and I guess with clarity as well, where you're going, those synchronicities become closer and closer and stronger, do you find, as you're growing your intuition and all these skills?
Completely, even like an acceleration moment. That's what I'm going through right now. I feel I've planted so many seeds along the way, and suddenly, like, they're all growing and things are starting to blossom in a beautiful way. And that's also very powerful because that's again gives me energy back and gives me trust from the inside. Yeah, I'm on my journey and it's okay. And it's also okay if some things don't work out. And it's also good to ask yourself, like on a regular basis, is this still a fit or not? And if it's not, maybe let's get rid of it. But
Yeah, that's a really important one, isn't it? Because often we think once we start something, we need to finish it, and some things were aligned once upon a time, and they're not anymore. So it's really important to get rid of them and make space for other things. So that segues on making space for other things. The second stone in your shoe. Can you tell us a bit more
yeah.
about that?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it before that I went into this crisis moment at the beginning of last year, and I was really thinking, okay, are the institutional projects still a fit for me? And I thought about it the whole year, even until the retreat where we met in Bali in November, because I was really in doubt: is this really my purpose still? On the other hand, I knew these were purposeful projects, and I had a moment where I found clarity. And it's funny because sometimes we're just one thought away from the solution. And basically, the way I see it now is okay, you're giving your voice to these institutions when you work with them and you write their press releases and their campaigns, etc. And it's okay. It's okay. You can keep doing that as long as it doesn't drag your energy or like you really or yeah, like makes you feel like you're down, because it can be your enabler. It can be the enabler for the other things. And basically, the journey last year was I've been more and more developing my own voice. That's been really beautiful because for a long time I had only been communicating for the others in a successful way, but I hadn't really developed my own voice in such a strong way. So when they canceled my projects at the beginning of the year, I suddenly had time, which I never have. And I was like, shit, like I thought I would go to Africa in February. Now they canceled my trip. So what am I going to do with that? And so I had a few dormant projects within me, boiling within me already, let's say. And suddenly I said, okay, there's no excuse, Doro. Now you have to launch these. And one of them was like a training with a colleague of mine, which we've done already like twice now in the meantime. I also started a newsletter on LinkedIn, which is called Women Who Inspire the World. And this is really a project that comes from the heart because basically I realized I always meet so many incredible women when I travel around the world and I work in Africa and I work in the communities and these women are not famous, they're not VIP, but they do an incredible work and they can inspire others to do the same. And I have access to them, like this
Yeah.
is another thing because I realized, yeah, I can actually easily access women in Afghanistan, and I can talk about education in Afghanistan. I mean, it's not so easy.
Yeah.
And I realized, yeah,
No,
I
no.
actually have a great network. So I
And
should
exactly
use
as you
them.
said before, it was all about network. One of the things that you said before is you were great at, building communities and networking
Yeah,
and, the right people in your sphere, energetically as well.
exactly. And not the
So
quantity necessarily, but the
no,
quality.
no, it's a
Exactly.
quality.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just a question around that. So these two projects had been something that you wanted to launch before, but you just never had the time.
Exactly.
Mm.
Because I'd already done trainings like, yeah, how to create your lead magnets and create your communities more, to create your own online products, etc. But I just wasn't, yeah, I wasn't ready because I needed this space, even this creative space to really do it. And the good thing is also I put some pressure off me by calling them pilot projects. You know the way you launch a new project and you feel like you need to be successful straight away. So by calling them pilot projects, I thought, this is a test. Let's see.
That's that's
So
that's amazing because it just takes the pressure off you, and
exactly.
and the outcome is and I think so often when we get caught up in outcome, we get nervous because the perfectionist in us wants to come out and the achiever and all
Totally.
these other parts. But when it's a pilot and you're just doing and seeing where it's going without an particular outcome, I think we can just relax and enjoy it. And I think often when that happens as well, you open yourself up to so many other possibilities that you might not have thought of. And with the creativity and people coming in and what you create, it's like, whoa, that was magic. And the journey was enjoyable because there was no pressure.
Exactly, because failure is also can be part of that journey, and
Yeah.
failure can be the learning experience
Yeah.
to fine tune it, relaunch it in another way, etc. So that for me is actually like one of my maybe tips or so to others. If you do it that way and you take the baby steps, you concentrate also on one step after the other without even pressure. Okay, I have to launch it next week. No, no, you can launch it next month. It's still okay. But I did little bit of planning, and I set myself, for example, for the newsletter, I launched the first edition to see how it would go, and it was amazing. I was contacted by women all over the world that I didn't even know that read the article. They felt like, wow, this was resonating so much with them. So I got really encouraged to keep on doing this, and I set myself like a frequency. Okay, how often do I want to do this? I said, okay, once a month. Once a month is not stressful, but it keeps like regularity, and that I've been doing that ever since. And actually I even realized now that it doesn't give me any money, that kind of like the newsletter in particular, but it gives me so much joy and even mental balance. I realized when I have a toxic situation in one of my paid projects in the international organizations, then knowing, wow, tomorrow I'm going to interview this great woman in Chile on her indigenous wisdom. I did this interview last week. This
Wonderful.
sparks so much joy and gives me so much energy. And that gives me then the power to keep going and even not take some of the like bad things in the other projects personally and protect myself from them. And I realized this gives me good balance in the end. So so now that I see these projects as an enabler, I can keep on doing them. I focus on gratitude. I'm grateful that I have this enabler to be able to focus more on my own projects. And actually, you know what happened? This is when the magic happens. The universe was so nice with me. There was a bouncing back, a bit like what happened to many people after the pandemic, you know, when they stopped and then suddenly there was a bouncing back. Because funny enough, like I think it was in the summer, more or less, I was contacted for a new project, and it's with Canada, the United States, and Europe, and also very funny in the current world
Yeah,
setup that
yeah.
just right now working with the United States, really. But yeah, it's become this is like an urban cooperation project, and it started with like a few working days, and they liked my work so much that they've given me a lot of extra things now, and I was able to employ my first full-time employee, and that's a
Whoa.
big step as a growth step within my company as well, because
Yeah.
so far I've only worked with freelancers. I have like a network of 15, 20 freelancers I regularly work with. But since I work in different languages, different countries, so far it didn't really make sense to have a full-time person. But now this new project that I won, which is a 3-year project,
Oh,
was,
that's
enabled
huge.
me.
Yeah.
And the good thing is also that this person is working on the project about like 3 days a week. And the other 2 days, she's working for me for
Oh,
my own project.
so this is going to allow even more space and come up with more
Isn't it?
creative things and to once you give yourself space to think and allow ideas to actually go, you know as you said, throwing seeds out and having all these amazing seeds, because those are the ones that give you, and they might not pay you, but they give you the energy and they give you the balance.
Exactly.
And it's so important that we have not just focus on things that give us money, but things that give us joy, the things that make us grateful, things that expand us, things that help us learn, things that allow us, greater access to our intuition. And it sounds like, you know, when you first started getting feedback that you're on track and your intuition's right, you're getting so much feedback now. Yes, you're on track. Yeah, we'll cull here. Yes, we'll do this. And that must be incredibly empowering, Doro.
It gives you more power, and actually it's beautiful because all these new opportunities that are popping up. For example, I've also worked on 2 retreats in the meantime, and like it feels so nice when you can also share this with others and empower others. This is where another magic happens. It's not about me, and it was never about me. Even this newsletter was never about me showing off, like, oh, you can write nice articles. No, it's not about that. It's about creating these connections, empowering women around the world. And this is where the magic really happens. And I just did a retreat this weekend, which was so beautiful. And again, it was a bit of a pilot. It was the first 1 day retreat I did here in our house. And I realized, wow, I have this space that could be really a meeting point. This is another vision I have for this year. We bought this house a few years ago in the mountains close to Valencia, and we renovated it. And actually we realized we have a meeting point and we want to have international encounters. I already have new ideas now for artistic residencies, for new retreats. This is where, and then in the end, the money also comes. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's not
yeah,
about the money, but you suddenly,
yeah,
bit by bit,
yeah,
there is also a return of investment,
yeah.
but it was never about that in the first place. But when the universe is aligned, it shows up also in that way. And that's so beautiful.
It is so beautiful. And it sounds as though you've got so many things happening, like lots of
Yeah.
things sprouting.
Yeah.
It's what you focus on. But it just sounds like there's so, from when you first started and how the geopolitical landscape is changing and how difficult it is. And despite that, because so often we can get caught up in our own lives and what's happening to us. And despite that being part of your job, you were able to uh, create other things, because I think that's a really important thing for anybody listening, is that we are the predominant creators in our lives. We can create, and things are not perfect. In fact, they're never perfect. Often we create, as you've said with these 2 stones, when things are tough, because you have to dig
Exactly.
deep and you have to change the direction because it doesn't feel aligned. So um, and I just want to talk about the ripple, because the ripple that you're doing, giving all these women from around the world these voices, ordinary women, but powerful, amazing women, giving their voice and giving yourself a voice in all these projects. Where do you see this ripple, happening and the impact on the world.
This is a big one. Huh? Maybe I'm going to start with something else that came to my mind. Maybe
Sure.
we can come back to it
Yeah.
because one of the words that just popped up now in my mind was there's a bit of a rebellious act in all of this. Because, I have also a bit of an activist gene, and this is why I started to work in these kind of projects in the first place, in my communication projects. But it's funny because lately a lot of the discussions I've been leading is around what kind of leaders do we want to be, and what kind of between feminist leadership and more masculine leadership. And it seems like the masculine like power way is that's gaining, and I feel no, we should actually stay how do you say this, we should continue with the way we think is right, and I believe in a more empathetic leadership style, in a more feminine leadership style, which doesn't mean I can also be a lion if I have to. And I think you said that to me in Bali. You said, Doro, you're a bit like a lion or lioness. You protect your children, you can be very soft, but when you have to be strong you can. And I
But
feel
it's
this is
it's
the
having it's having the yin and the yang and knowing when to use it, because you're right, the
exactly.
leadership at the moment, just power and my way logic, this is how we're going to do it. But the more feminine, heart-centered, um sympathetic, empathetic, it is so important. So is this something that you see yourself being? Beautiful.
And I think you have to lead by example, because some of the women that I work with as coach, for example, they're really doubting if they're on the right track now, and if they should put on more masks. I told them no. I mean, maybe you have to adapt in certain situations when you're in a room with only guys, and they're that way. Then okay, maybe you have to be a bit stronger as well, but don't change who you are, don't change your essence. And so I feel this is why I'm saying I feel like I'm a bit of a rebel right now in the world that we're seeing around us, because I'm not going to change who I am, and I just hope I can attract more like-minded people, and that we can make this community of like conscious spiritual entrepreneurs grow and lead by example. And I,
Yeah.
and I also see it a bit like a pendulum. Like I hope that we're now okay. We're going to one extreme. Let's hope that it will also fall back on the other side again. Because sometimes you can actually feel in despair when you think about it too much. When you see what's happening in Gaza, when you see what happened in Venezuela, Greenlandia, all these conflicts, more and more conflicts. People are really suffering. When I think about it too much, it really makes me feel bad. But at the same time, I feel it's not in my control. I can't stop what's happening in Gaza, but I can actually lead by example in my community.
Yeah.
And I can hopefully be contagious in that
Yeah.
community and convince others that this is the way forward.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's so important because authenticity, the vibration of authenticity is so powerful, and it allows others to be authentic as well. And when people are authentic and they're being truly who they're meant to be, I think you get enormous power as well. And it allows other people feel supported. And I think there's also, because when you're with authentic people, you feel safer, you feel stronger, you feel uh, um, energized. And we can't dismiss the energy that authenticity gives out, and the power that it has on people. So Dora, that's amazing. And as you do that and your light, authenticity grows, so it does other people and all these women around the world, and this whole network. So that's amazing. What a legacy you're
I
leaving.
hope so.
Yeah, what
But
a
I can
legacy.
also,
Yeah,
sorry
carry
to
on.
interrupt. I can also tell you, I did a lot of healing work on my own family, like where I'm coming from. It's not that it was all just for granted. I was just born like that. Just maybe also a message to others who may be in a darker period right now. It took me quite a lot of time to get to who I am today. And I'm almost 50 now. So, I mean, at last, I can say that now that I'm middle aged, I feel finally I can accept also my flaws. I feel a bit more relaxed, even about my beauty and all these kind of things. But when I was younger, there were a lot of issues around that, and also a lot of family heritage that was energy draining, and I had to get rid of that in the healing process. So maybe it's also something to share, because it's not all about being the strong and the great and the contagious. No, there's also been very dark periods. It's not the
Yes.
topic of today, but just that
Yeah.
people know you
Yeah.
don't have to be perfect. And if you're now in the darker period, the light is coming. The light will always win.
And I think that's a really important one, because any journey is, you go through hills and valleys, and there are times that it's very dark, and you have to dig deep. But I don't know, but in my life, the times that have been the hardest have been the times that I've learned the most. It's not fun, but I wouldn't give up any of those times, because there was so much learning that happened. And once that learning is done, or the unlearning, depending on what you're doing with the healing work, um,
Exactly.
it just gives you this inner peace and this inner power and this inner knowing that you are perfect. You're great the way you are. You're not broken. You are whole. And I think that's really important, because so many people in this world today feel not good enough, broken, have to be somebody else. And whenever we live like that, and we don't live authentically, something always happens, and the universe reminds you who you are. You will,
That's true.
get okay. So, I just wanted to, just your final words to the listeners, like, a woman in midlife, perhaps, who's at the first stone in your shoe, thinking of, I'm overwhelmed at work, I'm trying to be a mum, and, it's just so, and I just don't feel aligned, I feel drained. Um, and also somebody, perhaps who's beyond that, who wants to then really start creating from their heart. And what words would you leave them with?
I would actually say, if not now, when? You know
Ah,
that, yeah, because
okay.
this is also a thing that has been growing within me. It's the time is now. Don't wait until you're retired. Like our parents' generation had this like thing. Ooh, we're gonna work hard, and then eventually we retire, and then we can travel the world or something like this. And my dad never got there,
Yeah.
because he got ill when he was 55 and he died at 69. So he never got to that retirement paradise. So don't wait for it. Start now, and start with baby steps without overwhelm, and start breaking it down and think about your strengths. Focus on your strengths and not on your weaknesses. The weaknesses can maybe be part of your learning journey, like where do you have to do maybe training to get better at, but don't like let your weaknesses drag you down. It's not worth it, because by now you have everybody has a superpower, one way
Mm,
or the other. And
mm.
sometimes they're in our extracurricular activities, even somebody's good at painting or at music. And sometimes it's even combining those. And you never thought that this could make a profession, or you could do something more with it, because it was always your hobby, or, like something you did outside of work. So listen to that, and just, yeah, and make sure that you open this channel for the intuition. And I can tell you also from experience, if there's too much noise around, if you're running too much in the rat race, this channel will not open up. And another thing that I've done, like personal experience on my side, is I stopped drinking alcohol, like maybe a year and a half ago, and that has actually strengthened my intuition. It's not I'm
Ah,
imposing that on anybody. I'm just not saying,
mm,
I'm not like a guru saying, "Ooh, don't drink any longer." That I can tell you that for me it has opened up a lot of channels that I didn't even know exist. Like even
mm,
things like in my healing processes with my ancestors and my lineages, that was very, very powerful. So maybe something to think about, because people sometimes get too busy in their weekend parties, because they have a 9 to 5 job, and then they just wait for Friday to come, and then they party all weekend, and they just continue, and they never stop, and they never take time to think. And I think you need to give yourself a bit of space. If
yeah.
you want to create something new and grow to your next level, give yourself that space in one way or
Yeah.
the other. It can be a
But
retreat, it can be
yeah,
slowing down certain things,
yeah.
but I think that's important.
Yeah, I think those very wise words. And for me, that was definitely, being an achiever. I had to, be achieving all the time or doing something. And for me to slow down was hard. But when you make that space and you start hearing the little whispers or feeling it, like everybody's going to feel it something, they're going to see it or hear it or whatever. It is amazing. And then when you go, okay, let me follow that, and then something appears, and as you said, the unknown, and something, magical line for you, and you go, wow, okay, I need to trust it. So it's little steps, getting feedback, maybe starting, something slow, not giving up your job, maybe starting on something smaller, and just really take time to listen to your intuition, give it time and space, and everyone will feel it somewhere different. So I think those are incredibly wise words. And yeah, if not now, when?
Exactly. So good luck to all of the listeners out here who are like, at the brink of starting something new, or like for 2026, it's your year.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate, everything that you've shared so much. And we wish you well, and get out there and let's get some beautiful leaders out there, because we we need something to change, don't we?
Yes. Thank you so much, Debbie. It
Thank
was
you.
great connecting with you,
Thank
and
you.
also good luck with your own endeavors
Thank
for
you.
this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you. Bye.
Bye.